After waiting for my boyfriend Michael Brown for 3 hours at the marriage registration office, I wearily sent a message. Michael, let's break up. Just after stepping out of the registration office, I bumped into my superior David Wilson. President, are you getting married today too? Secretary Jane, do you want to marry me? Thinking of the message Michael had just sent. Jane, don't be silly. Lily really is sick. Be good. Let's talk about getting our marriage certificate in a few days. I smiled at David and replied. Okay. Today was supposed to be the day my fiancé Michael and I got our marriage certificate. After waiting for him at the marriage registration office for 3 hours, I finally got through to his phone. But the person who answered was his first love, Lily White. Where is Michael? Michael is cooking for me right now. Ms. Jane, is there something you need? Cooking. A mocking sneer crossed my lips. I had been with Michael for 2 years and never knew he could cook. Then Michael's voice came through the phone. Jane, Lily almost fainted today. And her family isn't around. I'm just taking care of her. I scoffed. She never fainted before. But today, on the day I was supposed to get married, she suddenly faints. How convenient. I clenched my phone tightly. Michael, I just want to ask you one thing. Are you still coming to get our marriage certificate with me today? Jane, I can't leave right now. Getting it a few days later won't make a difference. Michael sounded impatient. I was about to speak when I heard Lily's faint exclamation from the other end. Oh. It's so hot. Then the call was abruptly disconnected. Without seeing it, I could imagine Michael comforting his first love with tender concern. Ever since Lily returned, whenever her eyes welled up slightly in front of Michael, he looked utterly heartbroken. But I never received that kind of treatment. In Michael's eyes, I was supposed to be understanding and considerate. He never realized I was a woman too, sometimes needing his care and protection. Subconsciously, my heart tightened. But it didn't hurt as much as I expected. Listening to the dial tone, I took a deep breath, a wry smile curling my lips, and sent a weary message. Michael, let's break up. Enough. If Michael wanted to comfort his first love, I would let them have each other. Just as I stepped out of the marriage registration office, I saw David Wilson standing at the entrance. Me superior, president of Wilson Group. I was momentarily stunned. As David's secretary, I hadn't known this was part of his schedule for the day. President, are you getting married today? David glanced at me with his dark eyes and gave a faint Well, congratulations. I almost asked why he was here alone to get married. But as a secretary, I shouldn't overstep into my boss' private life. So I swallowed my words. David smiled faintly. Secretary Jane, do you want to marry me? What? Was it a coincidence? Had David been stood up too? David's voice was low and steady. Since both of us are alone right now, why not partner up for marriage? Thinking of the message Michael had just sent. Jane, don't be silly. Lily really is sick. Be good. Let's talk about getting our marriage certificate in a few days. I smiled at David and replied. Okay. In less than 10 minutes. I had a brand new marriage certificate in my hand. Looking at the photo on the certificate, I suddenly wondered if I'd been too impulsive. What? Regretting it already? David asked quietly. I pursed my lips and countered. President, are you doing this to spite Ms. Emily? As a secretary, I knew a bit about my boss' private life. I'd even helped pick out gifts for Ms. Emily, though I'd never met her. Any woman David put effort into must be special. David looked at me, his tone cool. She doesn't deserve that. Secretary Jane. You'll understand later. Oh, I basically obey my boss since he's the one who pays my salary. However, I sensed a hint of resentment in David Wilson's eyes just now, which doesn't fit his persona as an overbearing CEO. After parting ways with David, I returned to my small apartment. Back when I was with Michael Brown, we didn't fully live together, so I bought this little place for myself. Once home, I immediately deleted and blocked all of Michael Brown's contact information. From now on, he could take his narrow bridge. And I'd take my broad road. Wait. No, I suddenly remembered my broad road now included David Wilson. He said he'd give me a week to adjust before I had to move in with him. Thinking about spending almost 24 hours a day with him as my boss during the day. And at night, I felt a bit flustered. Why did David Wilson even propose a contract marriage? Was he also upset by Emily Johnson? I've only been his secretary for a month. And we're not that close. And yet, I agreed. Considering his face, maybe I was just attracted by his looks. While I was lost in thought, my phone rang. It was an unknown number. Hello, Jane Smith. Did you block me? Michael Brown's voice came through gritted teeth from the other end. And I could picture his dark expression. That's how he always was after all this time together. Whenever I acted a little spoiled, he'd think I was throwing a tantrum and immediately turn cold. Yet Lily White acts spoiled in front of him every day. And he's somehow blind to it. Until yesterday, I would have caved in and soothed him. But now, yeah. We broke up. What's the point of keeping you unblocked? My sarcastic tone seemed to infuriate Michael Brown even more. Can you stop being unreasonable? If you want to get married, we can go register tomorrow. I laughed in disbelief. Michael Brown. You're not the only man in the world. Your chance is gone. I hung up immediately and blocked him again. All in one smooth motion. The next day, I headed downstairs for work. Just as I stepped out of the apartment complex, a car pulled up beside me. It was familiar Michael Brown's. He got out and walked over, starting with an accusation. Jane Smith, are you done acting up? Can't you be more mature? Blocking people is childish. Speechless, I rolled my eyes. Mr. Brown, did you forget? We're broken up. Michael Brown stared at me deeply, as if finally realizing I wasn't joking. Lily was really sick yesterday. I was just looking after her. If you're mad about that, I'll apologize. His apology was so half-hearted I wondered how I'd endured it for the past 2 years. I sighed softly, feeling sorry for my past self. Looking up at him, I said, Michael Brown, we both know what your relationship with Lily White is. As your ex-girlfriend, I'll give you some advice. Open your eyes and see people for who they are. Now move. Jane Smith. What are you implying? What did Lily ever do to you? She's just a good friend. Of course she was the apple of his eye. And he couldn't stand a word against Lily White. I shrugged indifferently and pushed past Michael Brown to hail a cab. Just then, a black Bentley pulled up beside me. The driver got out and approached me respectfully, saying, Mrs. Wilson. Mr. Wilson is busy today and asked me to take you to work. It took me a few seconds to process the Mr. Wilson he mentioned must be David Wilson. This was probably the aftermath of our whirlwind marriage. I'd almost forgotten I married him yesterday. Before I could respond, Michael Brown gaped at the driver and blurted out, What did you just call her? The driver glanced at him. She's my employer's wife. So of course I call her Mrs. Wilson. Michael Brown looked even more stunned. Jane Smith. When did you get married? Yesterday, I said airily, ignoring Michael Brown as I got in the car. This news must have been a blow to him after all. He'd always been so confident of winning me over, thinking I couldn't live without him, even when he repeatedly ditched me during dates for Lily White. I'd eventually forgive him, but not this time. Back at the company, I quickly got into work mode. First, I organized the files that each department needed to submit for David Wilson's approval. Then I handed them to his assistant, Sean. Sean didn't take the files. Instead, he smiled and said, Jane Smith, from now on, you'll need to deliver the files in person. Oh, but I was a bit hesitant. When I was suddenly promoted to David's secretary, Sean had told me many precautions, one of which was not to enter David Wilson's office casually. Sean explained. David said that from now on, Jane Smith can come and go from his office freely. His tone carried a hint of meaning, and I guessed he probably knew about me and David Wilson getting married. Okay. Holding the files, I reluctantly knocked and walked in. Honestly, I hadn't figured out how to face David. My boss becoming my husband, it was a bit awkward no matter what. Behind the large desk, David was looking down, intently reviewing files. I quickly placed the files down and tried to slip out quietly. Jane. A man's characteristically cool voice came from behind. I took a deep breath, put on a professional smile, turned and asked, David, the files are on the desk. Is there anything else? David put down his pen, leaned back in his chair, crossed his arms, and looked at me with a half smile. I raised my hand to touch my face. I had applied light makeup this morning. Could it be smudged? After a while, David slowly said, Have you had breakfast? I quickly responded, David, do you want me to buy breakfast? I'll go right away. I had done this a few times before when Sean asked me to order breakfast for David. David curled his lips and teased, Jane is really a good employee. I suppose so. Otherwise, David wouldn't have suddenly promoted a newcomer like me to be your secretary. I wasn't being humble about this. I couldn't think of any other reason. I had originally applied for the design department, but I was notified that I was hired as David's secretary. If it weren't for the doubled salary, I wouldn't have wanted this secretary job. Hearing this, David's eyes flickered, and he pointed to the coffee table. There's breakfast over there. Eat it. I froze, looking at him in confusion, not understanding his meaning. David patiently said again, Your stomach problems come from not eating on time, especially skipping breakfast. That breakfast is for you. Have some. My boss brought me breakfast. I had a bad feeling about this. And how did he know about my stomach problems? Thinking this, I blurted out, David, how do you know about my stomach problems? And how do you know I skip breakfast? David said nonchalantly, You're my secretary. Shouldn't I know a bit about you? After a pause, he looked at me and added, Jane, have you forgotten that you're not just my employee but also the person on my marriage certificate? I don't want to become a widower right after getting married. It sounded harsh, but it made my heart tighten a little. And suddenly a warmth spread in my eyes. I had been with Michael Brown for 2 years, and he never noticed my stomach issues, let alone reminded me to eat on time. I remember once when my stomach hurt terribly. I called him and asked him to buy medicine for me. He immediately replied with one sentence, Just order it yourself on Uber Eats. I have something urgent right now. Before I could say anything, he hung up without mercy. Later, I accidentally found out from his friend that the urgent matter Michael Brown mentioned that day was picking up Lily White, who had just landed at the airport. I knew that with Michael Brown, I would always come after Lily White. Perhaps back then, he was with me only because Lily White hadn't returned yet. I was just a stand-in. Jane. A man's pleasant cool scent drifted into my nose, and I suddenly snapped back to reality to see David's handsome face enlarged before me. My heart inexplicably raced. Duh. David. What is it? Startled by David, my earlier suppressed emotions vanished completely. David lightly tapped my forehead with his hand. What are you spacing out for? Hurry up and eat your breakfast. This little action made my face flush slightly. I subconsciously looked towards the door, worried that it would be bad if someone came in and saw this. Although I'm married to David Wilson, I still don't want the people in the company to know. Otherwise, I don't know how many people will gossip behind my back. Seeing my cautious look, David frowned involuntarily. Don't worry. Not just anyone can just come into my office. Okay. I quickly walked over to the tea table, picked up the breakfast, and said, Then I'll take it back to my workstation to eat. Miss Jane takes breakfast out of my office. Aren't you afraid of being misunderstood? I paused for a moment. It seemed he was right. I silently sat back down on the sofa beside me and said with an embarrassed smile, Then I'll eat here before going out. Only then did David walk back to his desk contentedly and continue to read the documents. At this moment, the office was abnormally quiet. I didn't even dare to chew too loudly when eating, for fear of breaking the tranquility here. I have to say that the breakfast David prepared suited my taste very well. He seemed to be a quite considerate person. I subconsciously looked up at the man behind the desk. He was noble and elegant, with extremely handsome features. Usually in the company, I often saw some female colleagues being infatuated with David. Before, I only regarded him as my boss and didn't think much of it. But now looking at this man seriously, he was really attractive. It was hard to imagine that I was actually married to him. Maybe sensing my gaze, David looked up. I quickly averted my eyes, finished the last bite of my breakfast, stood up, and said, "Mr. Wilson, I've finished eating. I'll go out to work first." When I reached the door, the man's gentle voice came from behind me. "Honey, let's have dinner together tonight." I neither agreed nor refused and just rushed out quickly. It was mainly because I couldn't bear being called honey. Before, when I was with Michael Brown, I was always the one chasing after him. Now, suddenly being treated like this, especially by my boss, I just felt a bit unaccustomed. Soon it was time to get off work. It was already 7 o'clock when I finished my work. I glanced at the still-lit president's office. I didn't know when he would get off work. I wondered if he had forgotten about the dinner he mentioned this morning. LD be better if he forgot. Otherwise, if I had to face David's face for a long time, my heart couldn't take it. Just as I was thinking, a message popped up on my phone. "David, wait for me at the parking lot." I sighed softly and went to the parking lot resignedly. "Miss Jane, are you waiting for someone?" I was standing at the elevator hall door in the parking lot when I met Kevin Miller, the marketing department manager, who was walking out. I nodded. "Yes." Kevin stared directly at me. "Jane, when do you have time? Let's have a meal together." I frowned. When I first joined the company, Kevin would often ask me out for meals. I had rejected him many times, but he still persisted. I was well aware of his feelings for me. Just as I was about to refuse, my phone rang. Seeing that it was David calling, I quickly answered it. "Hello. B exit." "Okay. I'll go there right away." After hanging up the phone, I greeted Kevin and then quickly walked towards the B exit. When I saw the Bentley from this morning, I habitually opened the back door and was about to get in when I heard David's calm voice from the driver's seat. "Miss Jane really thinks of me as a chauffeur. I am used to it." I forced a smile and got into the passenger seat. David glanced at me. "Miss Jane is quite popular." Huh? Why is he being so sarcastic? It took me a moment to realize that this man had seen me talking to Kevin just now. Could it be? "David, are you jealous?" Realizing this, I suddenly became bold and called him by his full name. David gave a soft snort and didn't answer. He started the car and drove out, but I clearly saw him stiffen slightly for a moment. The kind of embarrassment when someone's thoughts are exposed. What does this man think of me? The restaurant we went to for dinner was a 5-star Western restaurant. Indeed, following a big shot, life is just better. While waiting for the food to be served, I went to the restroom. As I walked out, I saw David Wilson on the phone in the restaurant hallway, just hanging up. I was about to head over to him when I suddenly saw a familiar figure bump into David Wilson. It looked accidental, but wasn't that woman Lily White? Sorry. Lily said with an apologetic look, her voice dripping with sweetness, enough to give anyone goosebumps. David took a big step back and glanced at her. Lily looked even more shy and coy. "Hello, sir. Can I add you on WeChat?" David coolly replied, "No," and strode away. Lily stomped her foot in frustration. Watching this scene, I smiled coldly. Lily had clearly been trying to flirt with David on purpose. If Michael Brown knew, I wondered what he'd think. After all, Lily was his purest first love in his heart. Back at the table, the food had arrived. I was surprised David had ordered all my favorite dishes. He seemed to really understand me. We were only halfway through the meal when a familiar voice interrupted. "Miss Smith, what are you doing here?" I didn't need to look up to know it was Lily. Immediately after, I heard Michael's furious voice. "Jane Smith, are you breaking up with me because you've found another man?" I wanted to ignore them, but hearing their accusations, I couldn't help but laugh and retort. "Where I am and what I'm doing is none of your business." Lily sounded hurt. "But this is a 5-star couples restaurant, and you're with another man." I wasn't about to indulge her. "What? Is this place yours? Do you think I can't afford it or that I shouldn't be here with another man?" But when Michael heard me talk about his first love like that, his face darkened. "Jane Smith, you're clearly in the wrong. Why are you so aggressive? Who is this man? Why are you with him?" A calm voice spoke up. "My identity is none of your concern." David, who had been facing away, slowly turned around, his icy gaze sweeping over both of them. Seeing David, Lily froze first, the hint of triumph on her lips turning to jealousy. How could the man she'd just set her sights on be here? Michael was visibly intimidated by David's cold aura. I walked over to David, linked my arm with his, and said with a light laugh, "Let me introduce you. This is my husband, David Wilson." "What? David isn't your boss?" Michael exclaimed in shock, adding that the man looked familiar. Had seen the CEO of Wilson Group from afar at a gala. I then remembered that when I was hired as David's secretary, I'd mentioned it to Michael. At the time, Head brushed it off with, "Someone of his status probably just values your skills." In his eyes, I had nothing to make David like me. But had forgotten that I was once ranked among the top 3 most attractive people in school. David looked down at me and said calmly, "I am Jane's boss, but now am also her husband. Mr. Brown, since you know who I am, you shouldn't disturb my wife anymore." He didn't even glance at Michael. Though Michael was a rich kid, compared to David, he was no match. Fuming, he could only glare at me. Lily clenched her fists. Didn't Miss Smith plan to get a marriage license with Michael yesterday? How are you married to Mr. Wilson now? She still couldn't believe I had such luck. I said coldly, "I have to thank you for that tea. If you hadn't clung to Michael yesterday, I might have missed David." I paused, raised an eyebrow, and added, "But Lily, you seem quite interested in all my men." I took out my phone, tapped a few times, and held it out to Michael. "Michael, see what your pure, kind-hearted girl is really like." I hadn't wanted to go this far, but Lily just had to provoke me. This video is of her trying to flirt with David Wilson. And I caught it. Lily White also came over to look. Then her eyes widened. Michael, Michael Brown wasn't stupid either. Of course, he understood what Lily was thinking about David at that time, but he didn't know whether it was to save face or to choose to believe Lily. His face grim as he looked at me. "Jane Smith, I know exactly what kind of person Lily is. What do you think this video proves? Look at yourself. As my fiancé, you turned around and married someone else. Did you latch on to your boss long ago? But hypocritically said you wanted to break up with me." Listen, everything Michael said was my fault. In his eyes, I cheated on him. It's utterly ridiculous. I must have been out of my mind to like him back then. Lily breathed a sigh of relief after hearing Michael's words. A hint of satisfaction flashed in her eyes. She knew Michael would always be on her side. I mocked. "Michael, whatever you think is fine with me now. I've let you and Lily be together. I'm married too. Let's each go our own way peacefully. If we meet again, pretend we don't know each other." Michael was about to speak, when David coldly interrupted. "Mr. Brown, before we got married yesterday, Jane and I had a purely professional relationship. Although we don't owe you any explanation, I won't tolerate anyone slandering my wife." After saying that, He picked up my bag beside me, took my hand. Let's go. I let him lead me out of the restaurant. It had been a long time since anyone stood up for me like that. At that moment, my weary heart seemed to find a bit of peace and a flutter of excitement. A week passed in the blink of an eye. I gradually adapted to my relationship with David. Although at work, David didn't give me any special treatment because of our relationship. But in daily life, I have to say, he's a good husband. Very attentive and caring. Suddenly, I felt quite lucky. That day, I was stood up at the marriage registry, but ended up marrying David. I just couldn't figure out whether David was really stood up that day too, and married me on impulse out of anger. I asked him once. He just smiled and said it wasn't time yet. After that, I didn't ask again. As per our agreement, I moved into David's villa. But as soon as I moved in, David had already gone on a business trip, which avoided the awkwardness of starting to live together, even though he wasn't there. He still reminded me to eat on time every day. My stomach problems haven't flared up during this time. After work today, I went back to my small apartment, packed a few things to bring to the villa. Just as I stepped out of the apartment, a gust of autumn wind blew. Feeling a bit chilly, I walked to the intersection to hail a taxi, when suddenly a dark figure appeared behind me. Getting closer, I was about to quicken my pace when a large hand grabbed me. I screamed in fright. "Oh, Jane, it's me." It was Michael's voice, still shaken. I looked up and it was indeed Michael. "Michael, what are you doing here? I've been waiting for you for days. Finally caught you." Michael looked at me, the strong smell of alcohol wafting with his breath. I frowned tightly and forcefully shook off his hand. "We've broken up." "Why are you waiting for me?" "Jane, you were right. Lily deceived me. She just wanted to find a richer man." It seemed Michael wasn't without suspicion of Lily after watching the video that day. He might have even investigated her. I raised an eyebrow. "Congratulations. You finally see her for who she is. But what does that have to do with me?" Michael looked downcast. "I'm sorry, Jane. Can we not break up?" This made me laugh speechlessly. "Is this because your first love let you down, and now you realize I'm good?" "Michael, I'm married. Even if I weren't married, there's no chance for us. Ask yourself, over these 2 years, did you really like me or were you just using me as a substitute for Lily?" I suddenly remembered a time when Michael was drunk. He kept calling out Jane. Now that I think about it, he was probably calling Lily back then. In his heart, there was only Lily all along. I was just too foolish before, moved by his calls of Jane. Michael was silent for a moment, then grabbed my hand again. "Jane, I've thought it over. I like you. I didn't realize before that I had fallen for you unconsciously." "So what?" I felt nothing towards Michael's sudden confession. "Just because you say you like me, do I have to like you back? Please don't look for me anymore in the future. I don't want my husband to misunderstand." Upon hearing my words, Michael Brown's eyes turned terrifyingly red, and his grip on my hand tightened. I tried hard to shake it off but couldn't, feeling scared inside. "Michael, let go." Suddenly, Michael was punched and staggered, almost falling to the ground. It was David Wilson. Seeing him, my heart instantly calmed down. David narrowed his eyes at Michael. "Michael, I warned you not to disturb my wife again." Michael wiped a trace of blood from the corner of his mouth, emboldened by alcohol as he faced David. "Jane is my fiancée. You interfered with us." I looked at him amusedly, without any mercy. "Michael, acting so affectionate now. Don't you find it ridiculous? I'm married to David now. I'm only his wife. And you, go do whatever you need to. Don't appear before us again." After saying that, I pulled David away, leaving Michael stunned in place. Getting into the car, I pondered for a moment and said, "I came to pick up some things. I didn't know Michael was here. Whether David would overthink it or not, I still explained to avoid unnecessary misunderstandings." David hummed softly. I know. As long as you're okay. That simple sentence warmed my heart. He came to find me first thing after his business trip. This must be what it feels like to be valued. David. Can I hug you? Without waiting for his answer, I leaned over and hugged him tightly. At this moment, I only saw him as my husband, not my boss. I clearly felt the man's body stiffen slightly. Then he raised his arms to hug me back, whispering, Jane Smith, I'll always be here for you from now on. His tone was firm, yet with a hint of satisfaction. No man had ever said such words to me before. I could hear my heart pounding like a drum. If I weren't sober enough, I'd think David had liked me for a long time. Weekend. I was lounging at home, planning to paint. Actually, I studied design in college. But it's been a long time since I picked up a brush. I called David to ask if I could use his study. David, I want to paint. Can I use your study? David seemed hesitant on the other end of the line. Then said, the room next to my study. You can paint there. Okay. By the way, when will you be back? Soon. Do you want some dessert? I'll bring it for you. I paused, then smiled. If it's not too much trouble, please bring some. I do like sweets usually. I just didn't expect David to notice. After hanging up, I took my painting tools to the room David mentioned. I've been living here for about half a month but had never entered this room. The moment I opened the door, I was stunned. It was actually a studio, filled with many painting tools, all unopened. Does David like painting too? As his secretary, I know David's basic information by heart, but painting isn't listed among his hobbies. But this studio was really comfortable, and I soon immersed myself in painting. I don't know how long it was until the door opened, and David came in carrying a dessert box and a bouquet of yellow roses. Finished painting. I put down the brush and stood up to face him. Yeah, it's been a while. A bit rusty. David looked carefully at my painting and smiled faintly. Not bad. Your skills haven't faded. I was distracted by what he was holding and didn't quite catch his words. Are these flowers for me? Of course they're for Jane. Girls should like flowers. David handed me the flowers, then placed the dessert on a nearby table and opened it. You can have some dessert. Dinner will be ready soon. Holding the bouquet, the rich fragrance instantly filled the air, and the corners of my lips curved up involuntarily. Thank you. This must be what it feels like to be cherished. The dessert was a very delicate strawberry-flavored cake, which was the taste I liked. David, I find you, the boss, really know your employees well. David looked at me and curled his lips. I only know you. My cheeks instantly burned hot, and I quickly changed the subject. Why is there a painting studio at home? Can you paint? David's eyes tilted slightly upwards. I can't paint. Then this. It's for you. David interrupted me calmly. I bit my lip. If I still didn't realize something was off at this moment, I'd really be stupid. I looked up at him. How did you know I can paint? I was sure I hadn't written it on my resume. David said unhurriedly. You initially applied for the design department, and those who study design can paint to some extent. This studio is clearly set up for oil painting. How did you know I like to paint oil paintings? I stared directly at him, trying to read his subtle expressions, but this man was very calm, showing no sign of guilt on his face. He just smiled faintly. Wait a little longer. I'll tell you. After a pause, he added, Jane, there's a school anniversary at university and next week. Arrange it in my schedule. After saying that, he walked out of the studio. I was a bit slow to react. Was David also a student at University A? But a man like him must have been a prominent figure on campus. How come I'd never heard of him? A few days later, it was the school anniversary day at University A. Originally, I didn't plan to go back, but since David was invited to attend, I went with him as his secretary. After reading the relevant information, I learned that the Wilson Group had donated a large amount of money to University A every year. No wonder the university had listed David as a special guest. I hadn't been back to school for a long time since graduation. While David and the others were talking with the school principal and the others, I took a stroll on campus alone. What bad luck. I ran into Lily again. But she was indeed a student at University A, so it wasn't strange to see her here. I averted my gaze, pretending not to see her, and tried to walk around her. But when she saw me, she immediately came up to me. Gone was the fragility she showed in front of Michael. Aggressively, she shouted at me, "Jane, did you say something to Michael? That's why he's been ignoring me lately." I frowned. It seemed that Michael really wanted to get back together with me that day. It wasn't just drunken talk. He had really dumped Lily. I curled my lips mockingly. "You know exactly what you've done behind Michael's back. Michael isn't a fool." Lily gritted her teeth in anger. "It's all your fault. If you hadn't shown that video to Michael, he wouldn't have suspected me." "Jane, you're just deliberately taking revenge." "Lily, Michael is just a man I've discarded. Why would I waste time taking revenge on you too?" "Don't think so highly of yourself." Lily's arrogant face was distorted with anger. "Thinking of something," she sneered. "You've just hooked up with a rich man. Do you think a man like David really has feelings for you? He's just playing with you. How do you know I'm not sincere to my wife?" A cold and deep voice sounded. David walked over, put his arm around my waist, and stared coldly at Lily. He said word by word, "The only person I've loved all my life is my wife." His words stunned both Lily and me. Lily's expression froze. Her heart was broken into pieces, and her eyes were full of jealousy and hatred. It would be almost impossible for her to seduce David now. And from David's words, I finally seemed to understand something I'd been ignoring all along. "David, did you know me a long time ago?" David smiled softly but didn't answer directly. Instead, he said, "I'll take you somewhere." Under Lily's resentful gaze, David and I left hand in hand. The place David took me to was the painting studio at University A. I was very familiar with this place. During my 4 years in college, I'd come here to paint whenever I had free time. I looked up at David slightly. "How did you know about this place? Were you really a student at University A?" David nodded. "But I only studied at University A for half a year before going abroad." I suddenly understood. No wonder I've never heard of you. Otherwise, a man like you would have been a campus heartthrob. David chuckled. "What kind of man am I?" I searched my mind for the right words. "Handsome, noble, like a god from the sky. So I have such a good image in my wife's heart." David lowered his eyes, and his burning gaze landed on me. He said softly, 6 years ago, I met an even more dazzling girl here." A flash of realization struck my mind, and I blurted out in astonishment. That person couldn't be me, could it? But I was certain I had never seen him before. David Wilson did not answer, seeming lost in his own memories as he murmured, "That day, I happened to pass by the art studio and looked in through the window. A girl in a white dress, her hair tied in a high ponytail, was intently painting. The sunlight streaming through the window fell on her, casting a halo around her. It was beautiful. At that moment, I knew there was such a girl at the school. I saw her for the second time at the freshman welcome party, where she played a piano piece that was truly lovely. That's when I learned her name was Jane Smith. Honestly, back then, I was quite the campus celebrity. After the party, many freshmen clamored to meet me, but she alone seemed not to notice me at all. Later, I often took detours to pass by the art studio and ran into her many times. Each time, she was absorbed in her own world, as if everything outside was irrelevant to her. Hearing this, my eyes welled up slightly. My voice choked with emotion. "What happened next? Did you go abroad?" David snapped out of his thoughts and gazed deeply at me. "Yes. My plan to study abroad was already set. But meeting you was unexpected. I never imagined that even after I left, Your image would linger in my heart for a full 5 years. Those words felt like a heavy hand gripping my heart, and tears uncontrollably blurred my vision. I knew I was attractive since childhood. Many had praised me, and I'd received plenty of love letters. But for someone to hold on to feelings for 5 years, that kind of devotion was something I had never considered, nor dared to imagine. I looked up at David. "Why did you never come looking for me?" David gently wiped the tears from the corner of my eye, his voice slightly hoarse. "When I returned, Michael Brown was already by your side, so I had no choice but to keep hiding my feelings. However, I didn't expect you to apply for a position at Wilson Group. This might be fate giving me a chance." I sniffled. "So you deliberately made me your secretary?" "I thought I got promoted because of my abilities. Promoting you to secretary was personal, but you truly met the requirements." David chuckled, lightly tapping my nose. "Did you think your resume would have reached me if HR hadn't approved it?" Then, I pursed my lips. "Who were you marrying at the marriage registration office that day? If he couldn't forget me, how could he agree to marry another woman?" David laughed softly. "Darling, don't you understand? How could I marry anyone else before you?" The realization hit me like a wave, unstoppable and overwhelming. I stood frozen for a long moment before finally grasping the truth, my heart pounding faster as I trembled and asked, "You were there looking for me that day?" David's eyes burned intensely. "I thought Michael wasn't good enough for you. I had intended to stop you from marrying, but Michael stood you up." So, what seemed like a coincidence was actually his long-planned scheme. This seemingly aloof man had harbored a deep, unyielding love for that girl from years ago. Like aged spirits that only grow stronger with time, I rose on tiptoes, wrapped my arms around his neck, and pressed my lips to his in a kiss. "David, thank you for not giving up on me. Before, I had thought Michael loved me at least. Before Lily White returned, he treated me well. But now, with the contrast, I realized his kindness was only because I bore a slight resemblance to Lily. I had been hopelessly hung up on Michael, blind to the gaze that followed me from behind. Reflecting now, it was utterly foolish. Thankfully, David did not give up. David wiped away my tears, lowered his eyes, and kissed my brow with utmost tenderness. "Jane, I've finally married my girl." He took my hand, his long fingers interlacing with mine, and led me calmly out of the art studio. The autumn sun bathed us, stretching our shadows long behind us. That evening, back home, David went to his study. After showering, I picked up my phone to reply to a few messages and casually checked my social media feed. Suddenly, I noticed David had posted a rare update, a photo of my back at a university that day. Captioned, "Got what I wished for. Curious." I clicked on his profile and was shocked to discover he hadn't been inactive. He had simply hidden his posts from me before. I opened his first post, a picture of my back in the art studio. Captioned, "She seems to really love painting." The second post showed my back watching a basketball game. Captioned, "Is there someone she likes on the court?" My hand holding the phone trembled as I quickly scrolled through each post. There was a 5-year gap. Then 2 years ago, another photo of my back. Captioned, "After 5 years, I finally saw her again, but she has another man by her side. And she seems to like him a lot." I skimmed through a few more and found the post from our wedding registration day. "I've finally married my girl." From then on, all his posts were about my daily life, and I had been completely unaware. My eyes blurred again as tears streamed down uncontrollably. My heart ached with a sour, suffocating tightness. All these years, he had been quietly watching me from behind, standing where I couldn't see him. When he saw others around me, he didn't dare disturb. But he was David, the CEO of Wilson Group, someone who should shine brightly, the center of attention. For me, he had been so timid. I stood up and headed straight for the study. When I pushed open the door, David Wilson looked up at me, saw my reddened eyes, and immediately stood up. striding towards me. I rushed into his arms and hugged him tightly. David hugged me back and asked hoarsely, "Why are you crying?" My voice still choked with tears. "David, why are you so foolish? You didn't tell me anything. What would you have done if I had really married Michael Brown that day?" David knew I had seen his social media post, patted my back gently, and said softly, "As long as you're happy, nothing else matters." I lifted my tear-reddened eyes, looked at him, and smiled. "David, from now on, I only like you." The last time I saw Michael Brown was at a banquet I attended with David. He called out to me, and I had to stop my steps that were about to leave. The woman by his side was not Lily White. I had heard that Lily White had apparently become the girlfriend of some wealthy heir. He looked at me, his eyes filled with complexity. "Jane Smith, how have you been lately?" I glanced at him faintly. "Without you and Lily White around, I've been doing well." Michael frowned, looking at me now like a dazzling pearl, and still asked persistently, "Is David treating you well?" I chuckled lightly. "Michael, I really have to thank you for not marrying me, which allowed me to marry David. I am very happy, so please don't bother me anymore." After saying that, I walked over to David, took his arm, and said softly, "Let's go home." David turned his head to look at Michael, who was still staring intently at me from behind, and said gently, "Okay,